now available in paperback. From the author of the critically acclaimed book The Man Crisis comes The Woman Crisis. Learn why so many women have become lost in their quest to have it all in The Woman Crisis. Get your copy of The Woman Crisis in paperback at Amazon.com and online booksellers today. Paul Pelosi, the husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, was violently assaulted inside of his San Francisco home. Now, in this incident, it is alleged that 42-year-old David DePape allegedly broke inside of the Pelosi home looking to do harm to Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House. However, he ran into Paul Pelosi, who was inside of his home at the time, and just because this man could not find Nancy Pelosi, instead he wanted to assault Paul Pelosi, allegedly, by hitting him with a hammer, demanding where Nancy Pelosi was. The police managed to get to Paul Pelosi's home because before he confronted David DePape, allegedly, he spoke in code to the police, and they were able to break up the assault as it was going on. Now, the police in their investigation believe that this is an isolated incident where someone looked to attack a member of the U.S. government, but when I take a critical examination of this incident, it fits right in line with the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And looking at David DePape's background, he clearly was a man in crisis even before he came to America. Now, in Canada, your David DePape was living okay, and he said he came to America basically to follow after a relationship. Now, that's a red flag for me because it shows that the beta male is only coming to America for a woman, and he really was not looking to set a direction for himself. So that was the first red flag as related to your David DePape being a beta male. And as he came here, he was one of these guys who was so shy he couldn't even go to a bank to talk to open up a bank account. And that's another red flag for me as related to a beta male, because most beta males have hard times communicating with others and forming healthy interpersonal relationships with real people. Now, your David DePape was possibly one of these introverts who spent a lot of time on the internet, and in this world of social media, this became his main place to socialize. And as he was socializing on the internet, he got on social media, and it was when he got to social media, that's where he went from being a introverted, lonely man to becoming a man in crisis. Now, when it comes down to the internet and beta males, this is like putting fire on gasoline, because many beta males do not know how to filter the information presented to them online. What they do is take every piece of information on the internet as the truth. And what happened, I believe, with David DePape is he wound up buying into many of the conspiracy theories that have been placed on places like social media. And as he went and started buying into many of these narratives that are placed on social media, he then got in what is called an echo chamber. And inside of that echo chamber, those ideas that were presented online in these conspiracy theories got amplified. And as he started listening to these amplified ideas, he then started to take these truths and then started to become extremely paranoid. Because what happens with beta males is that they don't really have good critical thinking skills. And because they don't have good critical thinking skills, they take, again, every piece of information online as the facts without ever going to check any of the sources. And because these men don't know how to go out here and think critically and objectively, and go out here and then try to check the credibility of these sources, or to go out here and look to find a counterpoint as related to this information to get some perspective, what they do is act on their feelings based on this information, and they start thinking about how this information is really bad. And in the case of your David DePape, he started buying into all of these conspiracy theories about the jabs, or what they call the COVID vaccines, the 2020 election, and the 2021 attack on the Capitol. And an acquaintance on CNA stated that this is what made him seem like he was out of touch with reality. But what was actually happening to David DePape is what happens to a lot of beta males who get most of their information on the internet and places like social media, because these individuals get their information online and don't know how to check sources, do not know how to go out here and find counterpoints, and do not know how to vet information. What they do is go out here and get information from these questionable sources, and they take it as the gospel truth. And this is what makes these individuals start getting paranoid, because as they hear about these conspiracy theories regarding things like the COVID jab, like the 2020 election, like the attack on January 6th, and things like the Great Reset, a conspiracy theory about how rich elites are trying to go out here and reshape the world, what this does is it makes a beta male go out here and become paranoid. And once they become paranoid and get in their feelings with fear, what they do is look to do harm to those who they believe are going to destroy the smooth world that they're used to living in. Because the beta male believes that this individual is going to disrupt their smooth world, they believe that they need to take action to go out here and destroy these individuals before they can destroy their world around them. And this possibly could have been the motive for your David DePape looking to leave his home in California and then go over to the Pelosi residence and look to assault your Paul Pelosi in his efforts to try to find Nancy Pelosi, because this man was extremely frustrated about what he believed to be a threat to his life and his smooth world. So he looked to neutralize that threat. And this is the way beta males think, because the beta male, again, he doesn't know how to process information. He does not know how to think critically. And because he does not know how to process information and think critically, what he does is act on his feelings impulsively, not understanding that his actions have consequences as related to things. And in the case of your David DePape, he was acting thinking that he was doing some sort of act that would make him some sort of hero, but he really was the villain in this picture. And he was the villain in this picture because he clearly didn't have a good touch on reality, because he was living in a rose-colored world that was smooth as long as he didn't have any conflicts, problems, or obstacles. Unfortunately, as he was going out here and listening to the misinformation on social media, he wound up being upset about things to the point where he wanted to go out here and perpetrate violence on a Speaker of the House. And instead, what he did was do harm to an innocent man, Paul Pelosi, who did absolutely nothing to him. Now, in the aftermath of your DePape going out here and participating in this assault, he has now lost the most important intangible of his manhood. He has lost his freedom. And he lost his freedom because, again, he got in his feelings about information that he saw online, and he wanted to act on that information he saw online without ever trying to challenge this information that is being put in front of him. Now, this is one of the big problems with social media. a lot of people take what they see on social media to be the truth without ever sitting there and asking, okay, where are these sources coming from? And this is something that is very dangerous for many people out here. Now, when I see information online, I oftentimes ask, okay, where is the source coming from? Because the source is very important. Because if the source is one of these blogs, which is an opinion of an individual, or a website like a Breitbart, which is controlled by far-right white supremacists, or even some of these Facebook pages controlled by individuals, I have to go out here and take that information with a grain of salt until I see that this information is substantiated and confirmed. Unfortunately, many of your beta males don't do this in their research, and they don't know how they're being misled by people online who give them sources from places that are either far right or far left, but don't give you an accurate and objective picture. And this is while individuals like a David DePapa get weaponized because they don't really take the time to really take a look at this information. And because they don't take a look at this information, they go out here and possibly wind up doing harm to others and then wind up with their lives completely derailed. Now, your David DePape basically has, again, lost his freedom. And now that he's lost his freedom, he's looking at doing life in prison for on the state level for assaulting your Paul Pelosi. And as related to federal charges in the U.S., he's looking at doing life in prison as well for assaulting a family member of a government official. And while this man may think he has done something as related to these conspiracy theories, he's basically wound up destroying his life, because now he's going to be in prison possibly for the rest of his life. And there he will have, instead of dealing with the misinformation online, he's going to be dealing with Bubba and Tiny and Roscoe inside of either a state or a federal penitentiary. And inside of that facility, he'll have to look out for the information for who's looking for his booty and what they're looking to trade it for, such as your Crystal Light iced tea packets, Little Debbie snack cakes, Ramen noodles, Kit Kat candy bars, cups of coffee, 6-pack Oreo cookies, Club and Cheddar crackers, your Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies, and your cans of Dr. Pepper. That's what your David DePape is going to have to look out for in the penitentiary information pipeline, as he's trying to avoid Bubba, Tiny, and Roscoe, and what items they're going to try to trade in order to get that booty. That's the conspiracy he's going to really have to worry about for the rest of his life, because now at this point he has basically lost the most important intangible of his life, listening to the misinformation from individuals online. And again, this information superhighway has a lot of pitfalls, and people, when you're out here online, you have to really think critically about everything you hear online, because it's very easy to fall into these echo chambers like your David DePape allegedly wound up falling into, because a lot of these people, they're posting information on these websites, and you can easily start following this stuff because it's telling you what you want to hear. And because it's telling you what you want to hear, you want to believe it as the truth. But you have to be careful online, and you have to do what I've been doing ever since I got on the internet back in 2000, and that is take this information with a grain of salt. A lot of times when it comes down to this information online, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because everything on the internet is possibly questionable unless it's something you can find from a credible source. And again, we have a lot of places posing as credible sources, like your Breitbart, your Stormfronts, and many other blogs out here. And these places mix lies with the truth. And these places, when you get on here and listen to this misinformation, what happens is you can wind up with your perception completely distorted. and it can have you basically living in fear and paranoia, and you could be out here looking to believe that the only way to deal with this out of control stuff is to do harm to others. But you shouldn't be out here looking to do harm to others based on something you got online, because again, a lot of what is presented online really is not factual, and a lot of times you have people twisting the facts, and that is what makes it dangerous for people online these days. Because back in the early 2000s, yes, you did know that there was the truth, and you knew what the truth was, and there were credible sources. But these days, the lines are so blurred by politics and on the right and the left that we really cannot get any sort of clear facts on the right or the left, because we have so-called former credible sources like the New York Times spreading information that's questionable, and we have many websites out here that are not really presenting the facts in an objective manner, and that's what makes it really dangerous, because you have places like your CNN and the New York Times, which were once considered credible sources, having issues with their credibility, and we're having newspapers on the right like the New York Post and other sites out here like I just mentioned. A lot of these sites, again, they present information, but you cannot get any clear facts unless you go out here and do your own critical analysis by looking at the points and the counterpoints. And sadly, your David DePape didn't know how to do that, because most beta males, again, these are the guys who take everything as the truth, but they don't understand that these lies can mislead you to go out here and put your own freedom in jeopardy. And that's sadly what happened to David DePape, who went from being a man who was just out here struggling to becoming a man in crisis who will be dealing with Bubba and Tiny possibly for the rest of his life. Now, if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behavior of beta males and what motivates them to do harm to others and themselves, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play, and other online booksellers. And if you want to see me make more videos about men's issues, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today.